when a virologist comes to you with that, let's say, what do you mean, Tom, that there's no such thing? What do you say to them?
Uh, I say, let's go through how a virologist proves the existence of a virus and shows that it causes disease. Um, and there's basically virology rests on four principles. The first one is that sick people or animals make well people or animals sick. Now you hear that a lot. My wife got sick and then I got the same thing, or my children went to chickenpox parties, and how come everybody got COVID at the same time, et cetera.
Okay.
So here's the real problem here is we live in a scientifically illiterate culture. And the main people who are scientifically illiterate are the medical doctors and the scientists. So that creates a problem. Now, here's what I mean by that. The first essence of science is if somebody has a claim, then you investigate the claim and it's not a matter of competing hypotheses. Let me demonstrate that for a minute. Let's say you're 18-year-old Asian-looking fella, your parents are Caucasian, you always wondered about that. One day you rummage through their closet, you find adoption papers, you go to your mother and say, was I adopted? She says, yes. And we didn't want to tell you, but we were someday going to tell you. And it's true, I've never seen a picture of you pregnant, et cetera. So that's true. And you go to your best friend and he say, I'm just found out I was adopted. And he says, so who are your real parents? He said, I don't know. He says, until you tell me who your real parents are, then I don't believe you were adopted. That's nonsense, right? That's anti-scientific thinking. And so, but unfortunately, if you go to most doctors and say, well, I don't think there's any evidence that chickenpox caused by a virus, they say, so what caused chickenpox? So who are your real parents? So getting back to the claim is there's this physical particle. They say it has a, protein coat, DNA or RNA in the inside. It replicates in the cell and causes disease. So the first claim is that disease passes from one person to another, right? You got sick and then your wife got sick, chickenpox parties, et cetera. So the principle of that is if two or more people or animals get sick at the same time in the same place with the same symptoms, something must have been transmitted from one to the other, right? That's what you're seeing. So here's the question. Is that true?
Does not have to be, no.
Yeah, what if you put 100 rats in the basement and then somebody puts rat poison and then the next day 10 rats die, all bleeding to death, and then the next day 20 rats die and the next day they're all dead. Same symptoms, same time, same place. That's not a contagious event. In other words, you cannot tell because one person after another gets sick with the same symptoms that something was transmitted, right? You agree with that?
We agree.
So you have to do a study. You have to have everything the same, except these 100 people were in a room with somebody with chickenpox, and these 100 people, same room, same emotional, same diet, same everything, and these people weren't, right? That's how you would do it. That's called doing science. There's an independent variable, which is children who are sick. Now, I can tell you and every listener out there, there is not one study in the scientific medical literature that demonstrates that any illness in animals or children is transmittable from one person or one animal to another. And there's at least 200 that I know of that show that it doesn't work like that, including the Rossino study in the Spanish flu. And Daniel Reuters, a friend of ours, wrote a book called Can You Catch a Cold? 200 studies investigating the transmission of colds and flu, all of which were negative. So if you think that's the case, right, then you're going to have to send me a study showing that that's how it works. And after 4 years, nobody has. So that's the first thing I would say to a virologist is we have no evidence that disease is even transmissible. So why are we studying this? So the next thing I would ask him is, what is the definition? Is it true that in order to show something exists, you have to observe it, and then in order to know what it's made of, you have to physically isolate it and then show what the components are, and only then can you study it if you have it isolated? Is that true? In other words, if you tell me that you can find a unicorn because you found a piece of a hoof, you better show me the unicorn first and show me the unicorn has that particular hoof and no other animal does. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Common sense. Okay, so what is the definition of isolation? It's easy. Separate one thing from all other things, right? I have pencils and magic markers here. I want to isolate the magic marker. I do it like this. If I study it by grinding all three of them together and then say, well, magic markers are made of graphite, I would be wrong because I didn't physically separate the two to know that this has made of anything or does anything, right? Now, here's the reality. And again, if anybody disagrees, they can send me the study to show I'm wrong. I know 100% sure I'm not. There is no example in the scientific medical literature of any virus being separated, isolated from any tissue or fluid of any sick person in order to be characterized. And in fact, we have over 200 institutions who, when asked, can you show me a study that shows that they did that? They said no such study exists.